The square empties slowly after the pillory closes for the night, but justice has other ways of ensuring the memory never fades. The morning sun rises on quieter punishments, less theatrical than stocks or branding, but far more permanent. For in the 16th century, the body is not only flesh, it is parchment, a billboard, a confession written in scars. You are led to the smithy, and the punishment feels almost like commerce. No judge need speak, the iron does the writing. A heated brand, pressed to cheek or shoulder, sears a single letter that will outlive even the most loyal witness. T for thief. V for vagrant. F for forger. Each stroke is the shorthand of shame, a resume of disgrace offered before you can open your mouth. Employers glance once and decline. Neighbors glance twice and whisper. Children point and giggle. Friends look away. The brand speaks in a voice louder than your own, declaring a verdict you will carry to your grave. What makes this cruelty worse is its domestic reach. Unlike the spectacle of a public hanging, the mark follows you home. At the hearth, at market, even at worship, the iron follows. Wives reconsider husbands, husbands leave wives. Parents clutch children tighter as though stigma is contagious. You are no longer punished, you are repurposed. The state has remade you into its warning sign. For women, other instruments police the very act of speech. The scold's bridle looks almost absurd when first described, a cage of iron slipped over the head, its cruelest feature a spiked plate designed to still the tongue. But once locked in, absurdity turns to terror. The spike rests against the flesh like an impatient listener. Any attempt to speak, to protest, to pray pierces. The woman becomes a parade float of silence, walked through streets with little bells tinkling from the frame. Each ring tells the crowd that words have been outlawed, that female defiance can be caged. Husbands sometimes cheer. Children laugh nervously. Neighbors learn. In every clumsy step of the procession, society rehearses who may speak and who must be silent. Then there is whipping. At first glance, a simpler cruelty, a post, a whip, a back. But here too, the century has perfected humiliation as much as pain. The whip is sometimes knotted with lead, sometimes dusted with salt. Each strike sings louder than the last. It is not just skin that splits, but status. Whipped in public, you are stripped of respectability. Whipped in private, you are reminded who owns your breath. In both cases, the marks outlast the moment. Long after the crowd has forgotten, the scars will speak when you undress, when you bathe, when you try to love. And then there is mutilation, the state's most chilling invention for editing identity. Hands for thieves. Ears for adulterers. Tongues for liars and blasphemers. These are not random cruelties, but careful revisions. Remove a hand, and you cannot work. Slice an ear, and you cannot hide. Cut the tongue, and you cannot argue. Each punishment narrows a life into a smaller shape, a smaller possibility. The wound does not need to be fatal. It only needs to be visible. Every missing piece becomes a message, every silence a signature. Yet the cruelty was not always steel. Sometimes water was enlisted to play judge. The ducking stool straps you to a chair and dips you into a river over and over until breath is a memory and cold becomes the sentence. It is laughter mixed with cruelty that chills most, the crowd watching as a human being is treated as punctuation between gulps of air. Some never resurfaced. For those who did, their dignity drowned anyway. Excommunication, the punishment of the soul, was perhaps crueler still. To be cast out of the church was not merely spiritual loss, it was social death. No communion, no Christian burial, no role in the community. Weddings close their doors. Markets deny you trust. In an age when faith is the calendar and the clock, to be cut away is to live outside of time itself. Many begged for the lash instead, preferring the sting of a whip to the silence of abandonment. It is in these punishments that the century's true philosophy becomes visible. The wheel or the gallows kill the body. But mutilation, branding, and excommunication kill what is harder to resurrect: a name, a voice, a place among others. This is the 16th century's second rule: survival is not freedom. You may live, but you will live as something other than yourself. And as you watch another prisoner branded, or a woman silenced with iron, you begin to understand the deeper cruelty of this age. The law does not simply punish crime. It rewrites people into warnings. You think you have seen the worst: stocks, branding, silence hammered into bone. But then the bell tolls differently. It is lower, slower, a sound not of discipline but of death. The square fills again, only now no one laughs. Today's stage is higher, built of timber, painted not with shame but with finality. Today is not about you as an individual. Today is about the state, and the story it wants everyone to remember. Treason is the crime that terrifies governments most, and so its punishment must terrify everyone. Theft may shame you. Adultery may disfigure you. But treason demands a ritual, a choreography of ending so public and so terrible that the thought of rebellion itself shrivels before it can breathe. You are dragged through the streets on a wooden sledge, not allowed the dignity of walking. The city watches, lining the roads like mourners at a grotesque wedding. Every jolt of the cart says the same thing: you belong to us until your body ceases to belong to itself. Neighbors clutch children close, whispering warnings meant to tattoo obedience on tender minds. A woman turns her face away. A boy stares too long. At the scaffold, the rope waits. You know it will not be merciful. Hanging here is not designed to break the neck but to choke, to hover you between life and death, long enough for the crowd to taste the suspense. Every gasp, every convulsion is theater. When at last you are cut down half alive, half dead, the true play begins. The executioner opens your belly before you can catch your breath. The air fills with the metallic smell of iron and blood, with the sharp silence of a crowd that cannot decide whether to cheer or recoil. Your entrails are lifted, sometimes burned before your eyes. The world becomes a narrowing circle of pain and disbelief. The audience leans forward, not because they wish to see, but because they cannot not see. And then comes the axe. One stroke if the man is skilled. More if he is not. The head is held aloft, turned into punctuation at the end of a sentence you never had a chance to finish. But even this is not the end. Your body is quartered, your limbs dispatched to the four directions of the kingdom, nailed above gates, hung on bridges, displayed on city walls. Your corpse becomes a map of warning. The message is clear: the state has more power than blood, more reach than kin, more permanence than bone. The twist is not just in the spectacle, it is in the audience. You realize, as you watch or imagine yourself in their place, that the people are no longer passive. They're participants. Vendors sell pies and beer, children swing on their fathers' shoulders, gossip travels faster than the smoke of burning flesh. Justice has become entertainment. Punishment has become community theater. And you, whether as condemned or spectator, are part of the script. It is this realization that stings worse than the lash. These deaths are not just meant to silence traitors. They are meant to rehearse obedience in the living. Every head on a spike is a sermon. Every will-broken body is a warning. The lesson is not whispered, it is shouted in blood. Do not betray us. Do not resist. Do not think you can hide. And yet, in the silence after the cheering fades, something else begins to stir. Doubt. A shiver among the crowd. A child who does not clap. A neighbor who looks too long, not with satisfaction but with fear. For in witnessing this ritual, people glimpse the truth. This is not justice. This is power dressed as theater, fed by spectacle. If the law can do this to one, it can do it to all. This is the story's turning point, the moment when punishment no longer feels like order, but like a threat carved into the soul of a community. You came to watch an execution. You leave with the understanding that the execution was watching you. The square is quiet now, only scraps of straw and blood left behind. But the silence is not peace. It is a silence that asks the question no one dares speak aloud. How long before the crowd itself becomes the condemned? The square has seen blood before, but today it smells of something different: wood smoke. Piled high at the center is a stake surrounded by logs, kindling arranged with the precision of a carpenter building a cathedral. Fire is the only executioner that requires no blade, no rope, no wheel. Fire consumes, and in consuming, it declares. You watch as the condemned is chained to the post, iron rings biting into wrists. The crowd shifts uneasily. Some whisper prayers. Others smile faintly, more interested in the heat than the soul about to leave this world. Children are lifted higher onto shoulders. No one wants them to miss history. The torch is lowered. At first, only smoke rises, soft and gray, curling like incense in a church. Then the flames take, crawling upward, licking cloth, then flesh. The condemned screams, raw, wordless, more animal than human. And suddenly you realize, this is not only punishment. This is a message sent through air itself. For fire travels fast. Its light reaches windows 2 streets away, its smoke climbs above rooftops, its crackle tells the city, heresy has been answered. Beside you, a woman covers her child's eyes. The boy resists, peering through fingers. The mother whispers, remember this, so you never bring shame on us. And you understand, the punishment is not for the guilty. It is for the innocent, teaching obedience through terror. But fire is only one element pressed into service. Water, too, has learned the language of pain. Prisoners are strapped to benches, mouths pried open, jugs tipped until swallowing becomes drowning. The belly swells grotesquely, the lungs convulse, the world dissolves in panic. You do not need to imagine, you can hear it, muffled screams behind barred windows, then silence broken only by coughing. When the accused finally emerges, soaked and shivering, he looks less like a man and more like a shadow of himself. And yet, the records will say, he confessed freely. Then comes iron. Its patience is worse than fire's frenzy. You are shown the spiked chair, cold at first, then heated from below until it glows faintly. The victim shifts instinctively, but every movement drives metal deeper. After an hour, the chair and the body seem fused, a single monument to endurance. And when the executioner grows bored, there is always the boot, a wooden frame tightened by wedges until shin bones snap like dry twigs. The crowd does not always cheer at these punishments. Sometimes they fall into silence, the kind that feels heavier than applause. Fear spreads differently now, not the quick gasp of spectacle, but the long shudder of imagination. Everyone wonders, how would I endure? Would I beg? Would I break? You feel it too. It's no longer about them, the condemned, it's about you. You taste smoke at the back of your throat, you hear phantom water in your lungs, you feel the phantom pressure of wedges against your legs. For the first time, you begin to doubt whether you are a spectator at all. And then, the unexpected, the condemned speaks. Charred lips, broken breath, but still words. Look at them, he croaks, voice rasping through flame and smoke. Look at how they need us to suffer to keep their order. Do you think they would stop if it were you? Do you think obedience will save you? A guard strikes him, silencing the words. But they linger, hanging in the square like embers that refuse to die. The crowd murmurs uneasily. A boy asks his father, why do they make him scream if God already knows? The father has no answer. This is the build before the storm, the moment where punishment shifts from being spectacle to being accusation. The condemned no longer looks like a criminal. He looks like a mirror, held up to every face in the square. The fire roars higher. The iron glows hotter. The water waits for its next mouth. You realize, with a chill deeper than any ducking stool, that the execution is no longer about crime. It is about control. And the question rising in your chest is one no punishment can erase. If they can do this to him, what is to stop them from doing it to me? The air thickens with smoke and silence. The square holds its breath. The climax is near. The square is louder tonight. Not with laughter, not with jeers, but with anticipation. Vendors bark their wares, children are lifted high, men push forward to claim the best view. The scaffold has been removed. In its place stands something worse, a great wooden wheel propped on a frame, its spokes spread wide like the ribs of a beast. The condemned is dragged into view, wrists bound, face swollen from interrogation. His shirt hangs in tatters. His eyes search the crowd not for mercy but for witnesses. Somewhere in that sea of faces is his family. Somewhere are the neighbors who once shared his bread. Now they stand shoulder to shoulder with strangers, waiting to see him broken. The executioner steps forward, calm as a craftsman at his bench. In his hand glints a heavy iron bar. There are no speeches today. The punishment itself will speak. The first blow falls across the prisoner's arm. The sound is not a cry but a crack, the clean fracture of bone snapping like kindling. The crowd flinches, but no one looks away. The second blow lands on his leg. Another crack, sharper, followed by a guttural scream that rips through the square like a torn banner. Mothers cover their children's ears. Fathers tell them to remember. One by one, the limbs give way. Elbow, knee, shin. The man is no longer a man but a lattice of pain, a body bent into shapes no body should know. His arms flop loosely, his legs buckle, yet still he breathes. And that is the point. Death is not the goal. Not yet. The executioner weaves the shattered limbs through the wheel's spokes, threading bone through wood as though constructing a cage from the man himself. Each twist forces another cry, another convulsion, until his body is stretched and fixed like a grotesque tapestry. He is raised now, the wheel tilted upward, displayed not on the ground but above it, suspended between earth and sky like a warning written across the air. The crowd is silent. Not reverent, not pitiful, but caught in the gravity of the scene. The man moans, words lost to agony, but his eyes remain open. He stares outward, searching, condemning, pleading all at once. It is unbearable, that gaze. For it says, "This is what your obedience costs. This is how your silence is purchased." Time stretches. An hour passes. The sun dips lower, staining the wheel in gold as if heaven itself has turned its gaze to the square. The condemned still lives. Every twitch, every ragged breath prolongs the lesson. People shift uncomfortably. Some murmur prayers. Others demand an end. But still the will holds. Still the man endures. Finally, the executioner climbs the frame once more. He carries a final weapon, a hammer. With slow, deliberate precision, he brings it down upon the prisoner's chest. Once. Twice. A dull thud. A shuddering gasp. The eyes flicker then fade. Silence spreads, heavier than smoke, thicker than blood. The square breathes as one, a collective exhale after hours of holding air. The man is dead. The lesson remains. His body stays on the wheel, left for birds and weather to finish. Tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, the people will pass beneath him, each glance a reminder that order is paid for in bones. And yet, something has shifted. You feel it in the crowd. This death does not settle like others. It lingers, uncomfortable, as if the punishment has revealed too much. A woman sobs openly. A boy hides his face in his father's coat. Even the vendors fall quiet, their bread unsold, their wine untouched. The breaking wheel was meant to terrify rebellion out of existence. But tonight, it has planted something different: doubt. For in the shattering of one man's body, the crowd glimpsed the fragility of their own. They saw not justice, but the machinery of control laid bare. As dusk deepens, the wheel creaks in the wind, its silhouette stark against the fading sky. The condemned man's body swings slightly, like a pendulum marking the hour. You realize with a chill that it is not just his bones that were broken tonight. Something in the square itself has cracked. And cracks, once made, never fully heal. The will still stands in the square. Days pass, then weeks. Rain slicks the wood. Birds circle, swooping to feed. Children hurry past, clutching their mothers' skirts. Merchants arrange their stalls at a safe distance, pretending not to notice the figure rotting above them. Yet no one can look away for long. His broken body is more than remains, it is memory, nailed into place so the town cannot forget. This is how the 16th century worked its sorcery. Punishment did not end when the victim's heart stopped. It lingered, stretching across seasons, becoming part of the town's landscape. Pain was not private. Pain was architecture. And in that architecture, every person was implicated. To live here was to carry the knowledge that law could brand you, silence you, dismember you, burn you, drown you, or break you, all while neighbors watched and children learned. It was not enough to obey. You had to believe that cruelty was necessary, that order required blood. The true punishment was not the breaking wheel or the iron chair. The true punishment was complicity. One evening, long after the executioner has gone home, you stand alone in the square. The body on the wheel is only a shadow now, limbs stiff, skin darkened to leather. And yet, in the silence, you hear him. Not words, but presence, the echo of agony that refuses to fade. You realize, with a weight that makes your knees tremble, that justice here is not about crime. It is about control, written in suffering, staged in public. And then another thought rises, sharper still. We are not so different. The scaffold has vanished, but the hunger for spectacle has not. We no longer crowd the square for the breaking wheel, but we crowd our screens for headlines, for scandals, for the slow-motion ruin of lives. We share humiliation as easily as bread once sold at the gallows. Reputation burns faster than wood, confession is still extracted under pressure, and exile, now called cancellation, still erases the voice of the unwanted. We have traded timber for pixels, iron for algorithms, smoke for trending tags. But the impulse is the same, to watch, to judge, to assure ourselves that punishment belongs only to others. And, just like the crowd in the square, we forget too easily that the spectacle is also meant for us. Every public shaming whispers the same lesson the breaking wheel once screamed: stay silent, obey, do not stand out. The 16th century wanted obedience. Our century wants the same. Only the tools have changed. As you leave the square, whether cobbled or digital, you cannot escape the image of the wheel. It follows, creaking in the wind of memory, reminding you that violence never truly ends. It transforms. It modernizes. It survives. Perhaps the question was never would you survive? Perhaps the question has always been, when the spectacle begins, will you look away or will you watch? The crowd in the 16th century believed they had no choice. Do we? The square is empty now, but it is never truly silent. The air remembers the screams. The stones remember the blood. And somewhere, a child who once saw a man broken on the wheel grows into an adult who believes pain is the only way to teach. This is how cruelty endures, not in the executioner's hand, but in the audience's memory. Not in the instruments of torture, but in the willingness to watch. The last thing you hear as you step away is not the clatter of the wheel, nor the moan of the dying, but the echo of your own heartbeat, asking the question that history never answers. If justice is a theater, what role will you play, the spectator, the executioner, or the one who dares to walk away?